All right, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to do something a little bit different with this one by way of introduction. If you haven't been here before, my name's Sal. I appreciate it. For those of you guys who have been watching my videos, appreciate the constant support. I said I wanted 25 likes on that last video. We got over 50. It's approaching 1,000 views in like 3 days, which is crazy, mind-boggling, stuff that I never thought would happen. It seems like low numbers compared to maybe some other big YouTube channels, but that's fine because it just shows that you guys are liking the content, shows that what I'm putting out is actually meaningful. People are liking it, getting active in the comments on some of these videos. So I really appreciate that. If you haven't checked out this week's for Week 8 DraftKings NFL, the Week 8 first look video up, go ahead, check that one out. That'd be awesome. I also put out a Thursday night video for tonight. Hopefully this one gets out tonight. But what I want to do with this one's a little bit different. I put out my value plays the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it's tough because I'm putting those out on Thursdays. And I'm shooting it really Thursday mornings before those Thursday practice reports come out. And really Thursday and Friday practice reports are where you find some stuff out. Saturdays when you start to build your lineup because of that. So it's hard to get true value plays that really just aren't as much as chalky type value plays. And contrarian plays when it's a Thursday or Friday and you don't know what the injury reports are looking like. You don't know if there's any other uncertain things like trades happening, things like that. So I thought that I'd do something different. I'm just going to do a game-by-game breakdown. Usually these are in podcast format. Sometimes it might be like close to an hour video. I'm going to try and go through it quickly. If you guys like the content, that's awesome. And I know it's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so if you're still here right now and you only want to see, like, say, the Packers-Rams game, the highest total game of the week, I'm going to put in the description below some time codes. So I'll put each of the games with a time code. You click that time code and it'll take you to that game so you can see the what I talk about for that game specifically. But I appreciate it. If you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead, hit the subscribe. Pound that like button if you're listening to me right now, and if you can hit that like button, I appreciate it right there, the thumbs up. And turn on that notification bell so you can find out when videos like this come out more often. It'll notify you via email, and it won't just throw everything at you. It'll just let you know the videos that it thinks that you are most likely wanting to see. So we're going to start this one off just going through it. It's a 10-game slate again. We have another London game. That game I think is going to be a defensive battle between the Eagles and Jaguars in London. So I'm kind of excited it's not on the main slate. But when we're just looking really quickly, instead of going through position, I'll just go through the games quickly. So you have Denver and the Chiefs, the first game. So obviously Patty Mahomes, if you just look at his game logs, he's somebody that you want to roster and cash as much as you can. He's priced up the most expensive QB, $600 more than Aaron Rodgers, who's next. But his floor is what, 21 points, 20 points against the Jags. He's not going to play a defense like the Jags again. Denver's defense definitely isn't the Jags defense, especially in their secondary. So you see his floor is probably closer to 25 points with the upside of getting you 40 points at the quarterback position. Yes, he's 7K, but when you have a drop-off in quarterback, and I'll do this quickly, you have Patty Mahomes at 7K. The least viable starter is probably who? Rosen, who's basically 5K. So it's only a 2K difference. Your defense, if you go cheap at defense, that saves you 1,000 right there. So you can spend up at quarterback these days pretty easily. Not something that I typically do in cash, although this week I'm liking Aaron Rodgers, and we'll get to that. But Patty Mahomes at 7K, I think he's a contrarian side in tournaments if you stack him with the expensive other cheap players. I just think people are going to avoid him because of his 7K price and because of all the expensive other Chiefs players. It's hard to fit them in and still get value. From a cash game perspective, it's not something I want to do. Tournaments perspective, it's something I want to target. So obviously, Patty Mahomes, I just wanted to address the man's incredible right now. The show, whatever they're calling him, primetime, I don't know what they're calling him right now, showtime. But he's just been incredible. Nobody's been able to stop him. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the playoffs. That's really what I'm waiting for at this point. They can go undefeated. They can lose 4 or 5 games. I want to see what he does in the playoffs, though. So Case Keenum's a cheap option against a banged-up Chiefs defense. But it's definitely not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be, especially at this point. People are realizing that a little bit more. They held their own against the Bengals last week. And what you want out of a defense like the Chiefs is if your team gets up big, which they've been doing, as long as you can, you know they're going to be throwing the ball. So if you could bank on the throw, you can defend a little bit better. And if they can get rushing yards on you, then who cares because you're up by 15. So their defense is just opportunistic in that standpoint because there's going to be a lot of throws from Case Keenum, who's going to be trailing in this game. I think they're 10-point underdogs. So Case Keenum, I don't hate this week. The fact that they released Chad Kelly is definitely surprising to me. I thought Kelly was going to be starting. I said in a few videos back by this week, if not the week after, since they had tough matchups with the Rams and the Chiefs. Maybe get some blowouts, see what Chad Kelly can do. But Case Keenum, I don't hate. I don't hate starting him in cash or tournaments. If you want to have a cash saver, $2,000 off of Patty Mahomes, basically, don't hate it. Moving along to running back, obviously Kareem Hunt's in a smash spot. He's at home, huge favorite, 10 points. I don't think this is going to get any situation where they pull the starters, anything like that. I think Denver has the offense to hang in there, and they have the pass rush to maybe force a turnover or two to kind of shift the slate. I do think that the Chiefs win. I do think that they win by a touchdown. 10 points is a lot, and that favors Kareem Hunt. He's going to be running the ball late, especially in the second half. And let's just say Denver's defense rushing, they might be able to get to the rusher with Bradley Chubb, with Von Miller, but they can't do anything against the rush. Kyle Gurley went from over 200 on them. I like Kareem Hunt in this spot as a smash spot. 7,100. You have guys like Saquon who's up there, Todd Gurley, some of the guys that it seems like people are going to avoid this week because of their price and that value at running back, which makes sense. You have guys like Joe Mixon, James Conner. Kareem Hunt's a little bit cheaper, and you could save $400 to $600 if you come off of those two guys. That's a decent savings if you want to go up at wide receiver, if you want to get all the way up then from Aaron Rodgers to Patty Mahomes. I like Kareem Hunt this week. He's in an obvious smash situation. He's getting involved in the passing game. Phillip Lindsay, it seems like Royce Freeman is trending towards being out. And Phillip Lindsay, he's going to be the attractive option to put in there. He's at 5,200. He's very cheap, right? But in that price range, I kind of like Marlon Mack a little bit better if you're going to go for it in cash. This is more of a tournament play. He's going to get a lot of passing down work. He had a decent game on the ground against Arizona, but again, they were up big in that game. I don't like him this week as much as a lot of people do. If anybody, I kind of like to shift and go the other way, pivot to Devontae Booker. Look, Booker. Lindsey's not going to be some 3-down Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley type back. He's just not built that way. He's built more in that passing game. Maybe he'll get a couple of carries. He had 14 in the last game, sure, but that's just because they didn't have game script for Devontae Booker, anything like that. I think Devontae Booker is going to get more active in this one. He's going to take on that Royce Freeman goal line back, probably work. Probably split closer to 50-50 on carries. In the passing game, it's going to be all Lindsey, but Devontae Booker definitely has the ability to catch some balls as well. I just don't like this. I think it's going to be more of a game flow. You're down by 10, or you're going to be down a lot in this game as the spread is predicting. Sure, it's a high total. Maybe you get something in at the end zone, but I like Devontae Booker to do that more so over Lindsey. But on the flip side of that, if Lindsey is in the game when they're down big, he'll get more passing work. Maybe he gets 7-8 targets, converts 6 of them, gets in the end zone. So I don't like him from a cash perspective. Tournament, sure, but overall, I'm not crazy about him or Booker. I like Booker as a sneaky pivot, but since this game isn't close, I'm not liking either of them. Like I said, Booker in the pass game is obviously the better option if they're down. Or not Booker, Lindsey in the pass game, better option if they're down, but it's just not something that I'm really targeting. Just quickly touching on the wide receivers in this game. We got a lot of wide receivers. Courtland Sutton, I think, is going to be a star. He caught a touchdown in the last game. I think he's going to be great. I think if they move Demaryius Thomas like they're trying to do right now through trades, or maybe they came out and said they weren't, I think he'll be the guy who fills in. He does great. That'll also open up work for Deshaun Hamilton out of Penn State. Great guy in the slot. He would be a fantastic slot option if Demaryius Thomas was to leave. Sutton goes on the outside. Sanders gets some work on the outside. If Hamilton came in the slot, that's actually an incredible offense. If only Chad Kelly was still there, I think it would be a really good offense. Tyreek Hill, most expensive wide receiver, not somebody I'm ever going to play in cash at that price point. But in tournaments, I think, again, this is going to be a sneaky contrarian stack. If you can get Hill, maybe Hill, Hunt, and Mahomes. Mahomes and Hill take over the first half. Hunt takes over the second half. Maybe still some Mahomes in the second half. I think that's a sneaky contrarian play. I think at this price, Tyreek Hill, obviously casual players are going to play him because he's the most expensive wide receiver. They're going to see some of the stuff that he's done, his points per game. They're just going to say, okay, yeah, he's an automatic 20 points for me. That's not the case. He's not an automatic 20 points because look at these weeks right here. 3 weeks in a row below 15 points. Yeah, he's either a boom or bust type of guy. Lately, he's been running more routes, and he's getting the red zone work a little bit more like he did in this past week. And he's kind of due for a punt return. It's hard to just say somebody's due for a punt return, but it's been since week 1. The guy's had an incredible punt return rate. So maybe this is that game where he gets it. There's a high spread. Maybe that factors into it. And if that's the case, then you get that nice Kareem Hunt correlation there with the defense and that. And if you play the Chiefs defense, you can get the double points off of Tyreek and the Chiefs defense. But he's 8,600, not somebody I'm really looking for at all. Maybe I'll make 1 or 2 tournament lineups because obviously the Chiefs are productive. I like Travis KELCE more pairing with Mahomes to be even more contrarian. Getting it down here, Emmanuel Sanders is great. What did he score from like all 3 positions last week? Receiving touchdown, he threw one too, I think. So yeah, he had over 100 yards again. He's Keenum's favorite target. In a game where they're going to be passing, I like him. I like Demaryius Thomas. I also like Sutton at Sutton's price, 3,800. More so some of these main guys. Sammy Watkins is the guy that I talked about in my first look at a value wide receiver. I think more value is opened up as the week's gone on with the Amari Cooper trade. You have value at Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant there alone, and that's below that range. Jordy Nelson, I think, is at 4,700. Martavis Bryant's below Sammy Watkins. But I do like Watkins in a high point total game. He would just have to get early work. He's getting decent amount of targets, but basically what I mean by early work is he'd have to catch like a 40-yard pass or a touchdown in the first or second quarter before this thing gets out of hand, in my opinion. And then lastly, I'll just touch on here. I'm just going to check out Hoffman's game log. Like I said, yeah, there's not much here that's really standing out. He had that one good game on Monday Night Football. Travis Kelce, though, he's the guy. So he's priced up incredibly higher than anybody else. He's at 6,800, under 7K, but he's a guy who's going to get the work. He's probably going to score a touchdown in this game. You can bank on him to get you 10 points as his floor in this game. He's either going to get you a touchdown, 100 yards, or he's going to get you 7 receptions. So 10 points is just basically this man's floor at tight end position that separates you a lot. I think that he has the ceiling of 30 points in this game, a 2-touchdown, 100-yard game. I think that's in the plans for him, or it's a possibility for him. I love pairing him with Mahomes in tournaments right here, maybe coming back and getting a Hunt on the other side of that for a stack. Then you go on the other side, and you get somebody like Demaryius Thomas, who's really cheap this week, and you know they're going to be throwing the ball. I love a contrarian stack like that. There's going to be a lot of people maybe not stacking this game so much. They're going to be focusing on the Packers and the Rams game and some of the other higher point total games on the week. So that's what I'm looking at this week, defense and special teams. There's a couple of defenses I'll point out this week, but nothing really on that game. And for the sake of not making this like a 2-hour video, I'll try and just go through a little bit quicker and just point out guys. So I won't talk about every single guy like I just did. Roethlisberger and Mayfield, both quarterbacks I like this week. Mayfield on the road, not liking as much, but I like his matchup. Roethlisberger at home, tougher matchup, but I like him at home always. James Conner's in an obvious smash spot this week. I mean, he's going 22nd. Defense, it says here, in the Cleveland Browns. They're better in the passing game. They're decent at rushing the passer, but they're not great at stopping the run. James Conner in a smash spot, huge favorite at home, playing a lot of James Conner in both cash and tournaments. Chubb's going to be somebody that I'm just... And I want to touch on him because he had a good week last week, right? Decent week last week for all its sakes, for being down a lot and still getting you 80 yards and a touchdown. He ran the ball great, but he doesn't get any passing work. He's only had like 3 receptions since the preseason and over like 130 snaps. So I'm not all for Chubb at all. I'm going to fade him in a lot of good matchups going forward. I like his potential of getting 100 yards and maybe a touchdown, but that upside right there, that's only 20-something points. If you have a pass-catching guy like James White who's going to catch you 8 balls, that already cancels out that upside. Wide receiver, I'm not going to touch on much here. There's a lot of great values. I think the Browns' values are there for sure. I think they're very good. I think that Ratley could have a bounce-back game here. He's priced at the same amount, so I think he's still a value. Landry had a great week last week, and obviously Antonio and Juju. I think I come down to Juju. I think a lot of people are going to play Antonio this week for good measure. Antonio's splits at home are incredible, but Juju and Antonio, their target share is pretty similar. It's actually very similar. This is another high total game. I think this will be a popular stack game, but this is one that I could see going under. You have 2 underrated defenses. The Browns, a lot of people are now starting to get a little trendy on their defense. It's pretty good. And then you look at the Steelers, who since probably week 3 have come on pretty heavily. TJ Watt's been having a game. He's balling out there. Joe Hayden's been shadowing guys again, getting back to his old self like he was in Cleveland. Revenge spot for Joe Hayden? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard on the defense to be able to do that. But I think this is a game that can sneakily go under that 50 or 49 point total that it is. So it's not really a game that I want to stack, but like I said, AB and Juju, probably the best options in this game besides James Conner. Conner's just had a great value spot to come off of guys like Gurley and Saquon. So like I said, this game, I'm definitely looking at some of the pieces, especially Conner. Maybe have some Big Ben Juju stacks in there with Conner. Antonio Brown's obviously got to smash any week. He's probably due for that, but tougher matchup with Joe Hayden. It's just the price savings that I want to go if I want to try and get some value running backs this week. Up next is Washington and the Giants. I think this is a 42-point total, which is one of the lowest ones of the week and one of the lowest ones we've had all year. And it's basically, I mean, I had Eli in the Monday Night Football. It finishes tonight on Thursday night. A qualifier. I'm in 5th. Have a good shot at winning first. Have the most players' minutes left. And I had Eli. I was the only guy to start him. He had 399 yards. He did great. He outperformed Matt Ryan just off of that, but he just didn't get in the end zone. 3 rushes attempts that stopped at the 1-yard line for him. Just couldn't throw it in the end zone either. Tight end drops the ball, basically, maybe a little bit of a bad pass. But Eli's just washed up at this point. I mean, I feel bad for him because I think he is a better quarterback than people rag on him for, but I don't think he is as good as a quarterback as Giants fans and some other people think he is. His Super Bowl rings are obviously impressive, but I think there's a lot to be said about getting those rings, not just being him. I don't think Super Bowls are quarterback stats in Super Bowls. I don't think those line up. I'm somebody who believes that Tom Brady having 6 or 5 Super Bowl rings isn't an indicator of him being elevatedly better than other people talent-wise. When you look at guys like Aaron Rodgers, who Personally, I just think is a better quarterback, but I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But I just think that Eli does get a bad rep, but he is obviously coming to the end of his career. I think they're going to start to maybe put some other guys in there, which is going to hurt OBJ in the future if they put some other quarterbacks in there. I think it might harm Saquon as well, but those checkdowns, Saquon getting like 4 catches a week is just helping him extraordinarily. He's valued at 8,800 this week, and that's because his receiving floor is so high. His receiving floor is like 10 points for you at minimum, and probably on average 15 points for you just off of receiving alone. And then if he gets anything on the ground, it's just an absolute positive. He's basically their wide receiver one. I know OBJ's out there, but he's their first target because they're getting pressure on Eli so much. I'm fading Saquon this week. It's probably the bad option. In cash, I'm fading him. In tournaments, I'll have small chunks of him, not as much as I usually do. And that's just because I think Washington's run defense is great. We saw them halt Zeke last week. It's a divisional matchup. And again, he's very reliant on this passing floor, which I think the passing floor is there. It's obviously there. And his efficiency on catching these balls is incredible. 100%, 75%, 100%. 75%. This is insane. 67%, 90%. It's insane how he's catching his targets, and obviously they're low A-dot targets in the backfield. He's catching them sometimes for no gain, but it counts as a PPR point. But I'm just low on him at his price, approaching 9K for a guy whose rushing upside personally is great, but for his team right now and just the matchup, I'm not loving it. Quarterback-wise, I don't even want to talk about either of them. Not playing either of them in anything. I don't think there's upside for either of them at all, especially Alex Smith. Maybe if he had some receivers back, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, and he doesn't have that many weapons, especially when they don't use Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed and Evan Engram, I think, are both sneaky contrarian plays this week. Reed has just been not used at all in this offense when he should be, especially when all their wide receivers are out. It's actually a shame that he hasn't been used since he's finally healthy. He's a guy who can get you 100 yards. He can get you 8 catches, a touchdown a game if you just throw him the ball. He's a matchup problem. They don't throw him the ball. Evan Ingram's very much of the same. He's probably comparable with his size, his athletic ability, and his production around the red zone and his ability to turn targets into catches. Obviously, Eli's his quarterback, so this is difficult, but short A-dot might help him out a little bit. We didn't see that the last 2 weeks that he's played. I'm staying off of Evan Engram, but I think he's a sneaky pivot in tournaments. But cash, not even touching him. Tournaments, I think he's very sneaky at his price point, but at his price point, there's a lot better options to go for if we just come off of tight ends in general. At 4,300 where he's at, you can go right up to it if you wanted to. You can go a little bit more and get these two, I think, are great options. And Njoku's floor is great. Jimmy Graham's floor is pretty decent. Or you can come down and you can get guys who are probably better. All of these 4 guys in this range are probably better matchup-wise and just talent-wise. Greg Olsen, O.J. Howard, Vance McDonald, and CJ. So that's just what I'm looking at. Really, the only thing I'll point out in this game, don't really want to talk much about the Washington wide receivers. Josh Doctson, he's been continuously their number 1 wide receiver for the last 2 or 3 weeks with injuries, and he's continuously just not doing anything. 3 catches for 6 yards for 42 yards. That's his best game of the year as a number 1 receiver. He's been a bust his whole year. I was on him 2 years ago. Pretty heavily, I picked him up when they had some injuries. Hasn't done anything in his career. You look at guys like Jamison Crowder would be the only guy at start. He's doubtful. Don't want to touch Paul Richardson. Questionable, might not play. OBJ's the guy here. So he might be under 5% owned this week, and that's very interesting to me. Obviously, he's a guy who go for 30 any single week. He's done it twice in the last 4 weeks. I'm not afraid of his matchup since I move him around in the slot, and I don't think Norman's as good as a lot of people have hyped him up to be, and I think people are realizing that now. A lot of people have realized that. Definitely not a shadow corner, and definitely not somebody who can lock guys down anymore. Little matchup reunion between him and OBJ. I think OBJ has a decent game here, and I think he's going to be low owned because of all the value at wide receiver we see this week. If we come off and we just go to wide receiver, with guys like Green having a great matchup, Brown, DeVontae continuing to get targets. I think these 2 guys right here are sneaky. You have OBJ and Mike Evans sandwiched between Juju and these guys that people want. Woods is going to be highly owned in tournaments. So I think these 2 are very sneaky. We'll get to Tampa Bay when we get to them. I'm very impressed with Sterling Shepard's last game, but OBJ is the guy I want to target here. Defenses in this game, maybe you want to go Washington because that's always not a terrible option against Eli. All the defenses this week, I'll just point this out quickly, mad cheap, right? You have the Bears who are extremely overpriced. They're going to be very low owned. People are going to pivot off of that price. But against the Jets at home, I like this a lot. Sam Darnold hasn't been able to do much, and he has a lot of injuries on that team. Bilal Powell going down now maybe for his career, which is very scary. And then you have the Cardinals who have a good matchup at home as well. Don't really want to touch the Cardinals. And then it's all 2K guys, right? So really you can't go anywhere wrong if you're going just fading these top 3 really defenses. You're not really going anywhere wrong with that. You're going to see value. Let's go on to Seattle and Detroit, and this is a sneaky game. So Seattle and Detroit is one of 2 games that I am stacking heavily. And it's because, let me look at the total really quick in this game. It's a lot higher. It's 49.5, so it's basically around 50 points. It's a high game total. If it wasn't this year, if it was any other year, that would have been one of the highest games people are targeting. But with so many other high-scoring games every single week, and on this slate especially, people aren't going to target this game, and they're not going to target the Oakland Indy game, which is another one that I'm going to heavily target. So Seattle and Detroit, I love this game from a stacks perspective. Not so much as cash, but from tournaments. Stacking, you can stack, if you want to go this route, and you want to stack the... I don't want to touch Marvin Jones. They don't use him at all, really. If you want to stack these guys and then you want to bring it back with Doug Baldwin, I love that. It's all so cheap right there. You plug in a cheap defense. Let's go with the Steelers, who I'll get to. They're a very cheap defense. Plug in a cheap defense, you have $6,200 to spend. You plug in a value tight end even. I mean, somebody like O.J. Howard, who's been pretty impressive. Where is O.J.? $3,900. Now you have $7K to spend at your last 3 positions, 3 running back positions. I think that's pretty good, and it's not like you're just throwing punt plays in there. You're throwing guys in there who have upside, with Matt Stafford throwing the ball a ton, very accurate on the deep ball to Galladay. Golden Tate going to get peppered with targets as usual, and Doug Baldwin, maybe this is the week because Detroit's defense is terrible. So I like stacking this game a lot. On the flip side of that, though, very sneaky stack here that's going to be nobody really owning it at all. There's 2 that I'll show you for this slate. This one is the first one. So Russell Wilson, cheap, hasn't been running the ball, so he doesn't have that upside for tournaments, which is sad. But maybe this is a week where he gets 30, 40 yards. Look, if you're playing the Millie Maker or you're playing a big tournament, if there's more than like 1,000 people in it, more than maybe even like 200, 100 people in it, you're going to have some different lineups in there. If you just play the Aaron Rodgers stack this week, sure, that's probably going to hit. But then you're going to have to hit on every single one of your punt plays, which is a lot more difficult. Just got another subscriber, whoever you are. I think it was like Angela or something. Thank you if you're watching this. That's awesome. Just came across my screen. Love seeing those updates. It's awesome. But if we put Russell Wilson in here, and then, I mean, who do you guys want at wide receiver? Then that's the point, right? It's either Angela Collins. Shout out Angela Collins. That's the person who just subscribed. Thank you. I appreciate it. So Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. It's whoever you want here. I'm going to take Baldwin. Lockett's obviously been getting in the end zone more. I think that's going to regress backwards. Baldwin finally had a good game last week against Oakland. And I think that'll continue. And then here's the sneaky part of this. Ed Dickson, $2,500. He's playing. Here's the sneaky part. He's playing, but it says out. There's a big O by his name. No one's going to play him. For the small amount of people, you guys watching that see this and know that he's actually playing with the out by his name. No casual players are going to play him this low, especially if it says out. He is a productive guy. He's a tight end 1 too. This relies on one thing here. If Nick Vannett is out, it says he was limited in Wednesday, so that's not great. This is why I want to do this. I want to see what the Thursday report is. If Nick Vannett ends up being out, or even if he isn't out, I love Ed Dickson as a tight end 1 when he was in Baltimore, or when he was in Baltimore, but when he was in Carolina when Olsen was injured last year, year before, he did pretty well. He held his own. I think he had a 200-yard game. At that cheap of a price, with the upside that Russell Wilson always has, Doug Baldwin being a safer option, but he can go for a touchdown and 100 yards. This basically becomes a punt play that nobody's playing, but it becomes a stack that nobody's playing as well. So if it does well, and then you could fit in, I mean, let's go Steelers defense again. Defenses really don't matter in terms of, they're very variant, so just going cheap. Steelers defense, I'll touch on it now because I didn't touch on it. They're 4th right now in defensive against efficiency for sacks and pressure, and the Browns are last in that. They can't block for Baker. Baker's on the road, a rookie. I like them a lot. You have $6,700 now to spend on every other one of your positions, and you have a good wide receiver, a good quarterback, and a good defense already in there. You're just punting at tight end, and no one's going to have this stack in tournaments. Even if he doesn't play, I'm not against playing Vannett. I just don't like then that Ed Dickson's probably going to be splitting some of those snaps. But that's something I definitely want to look out for. That's the biggest thing that I want to touch on this game. Running backs, Kerryon Johnson, I know that he had a great game. I know that he's home again. Seattle's got a little bit of a better run stop than we saw last week when they were playing Miami. Kerryon, he got work in the passing game, so I like that. Monitor if Theo Riddick is out. If Theo Riddick is out, then I'm probably going to play a lot more Kerryon, definitely in cash, most likely in tournaments. It says that he was a non-participant Wednesday, so that's trending good for Kerryon. And then these Seattle running backs. I mean, Mike Davis, he seems like he's giving a couple more of the carries away now to Chris Carson. So it's pretty good now that Chris Carson's getting the bulk of those carries. Like I said, Detroit's defense is terrible. So I don't mind playing Chris Carson in tournaments at a cheap price, $4,300, when you know he's probably going to see 15 to 20 touches a game and get more of the red zone work. I like Chris Carson here in a game that has a high total. Remember that. It's not like we're playing a 42-point total. This is a 50-point total. This is a game that people would be targeting a year or 2 years ago in DFS as their main game. So it's sneaky because you can get a lot of good stacks in there. You can do this stack as well. which was basically the stack I just showed you. So you have Golden Tate, and then you come back the other way, and you have Wilson, and there you go. So you can plug in the defense, the Steelers defense, same price as the Seahawks. I'm not going to play the Seahawks, but just the Steelers defense. And now you have 6-6. And if we were to play Ed Dixon or Vanett, you now have $7K to spend at your last 4 positions. And like I said, you're getting guys, Golden Tate, good upside, Doug Baldwin, good upside, Russell Wilson, good upside. All cheap guys. You're just punting at the tight end position. All right, so that was game 4. My battery's about to die in there. Let me change this battery quick, and then we'll finish up these last 6 games. All right, we are back, and we are in business, and we're going to look at Tampa and Cincinnati. Another high total game on this slate, a game where a lot of people are going to target. This is probably the second most targeted game stacks-wise outside of that Rams and Packers game. Then you're probably going to look at the Chiefs and Denver as being the third most, just based on point totals in this game. There's a lot of goodies in this one. These are games that I'm going to be targeting, obviously stacking. Cash-wise, AJ Green's one of the safest receivers this week, and best value plays are going along with Juju based on their price, based on their matchup, and based on just the athletic ability that they have. And they're just skills, route running. Both of these quarterbacks I love. I love Jameis Winston because they don't have a running game there. They're not running the ball. Peyton Barber's decent, but he's no spectacular running back. They're putting all the weight on Jameis' shoulders. Yes, he's going to be throwing interceptions, but he's also going to be throwing the ball 50 times. Maybe not every game, but probably going to be averaging closer to 40 to 45 times a game. 0 touchdowns in a game isn't something he's going to do, but here's the thing that he can do. He can get on the ground, he can get you those extra points to cancel out his turnovers, and then some. So if he has a good game that has 1 turnover or no turnovers, his rushing ability is going to give you a floor that's incredible. A floor close to Cam Newton, a floor close to somebody like Deshaun Watson when he's running the ball. Love Jameis this week. Think he has a great matchup. But Cincinnati's at home. They just got blown out on national TV by the Chiefs. I think that they're going to come out with a little extra pep in their step, basically. Love Andy Dalton this week. Doesn't have as much upside as somebody like Winston, but I love his weapons. And probably the best play of the week. Probably the most chalk play of the week. But Tyler Boyd, he's $6,700. The man's price just, it's increasing, but it's not increasing enough for the work that he's doing. Sure, he didn't do anything last week against the Chiefs. His whole team really didn't do anything besides A.J. Green. Andy Dalton only looked A.J.'s way. But Tampa Bay's the worst against slot. They have the worst cornerback against slot receivers, and Tyler Boyd's a slot receiver who's been having a fantastic year. I think he's going to have a great game. I think stacking this game like this, A.J. Green, Mike Evans, Tyler Boyd, and Andy Dalton is a fine way to start. Sure, now you're only going to have a little bit of money to spend, but let's just try and build a lineup quick. So, Steelers D. I just want to see how this would come out now. You go Steelers D, and now let's say 4,700. You got to get some relief. Let's say Vanett plays. If not, Ed Dixon I like a lot. Now you have 5,300 to spend at running back, which there's a lot of value this week. Like we said, you can easily get somebody like Marlon Mack, 5,400. Then you can come down here a little bit if you want to play Lindsay at 5,200. I probably don't if I want to get a little bit extra potential and maybe get some more salary back, 6,400. And then at flex, play another running back, throw him in. Kerryon Johnson at home or Tariq Cohen. I mean, that's not a terrible lineup, right? That's a very contrarian lineup when you're playing a game that a lot of people are going to stack. I don't mind it. Obviously, like the Bengals receivers, not much to say about that. I like Mike Evans. He's like Odell Beckham Jr. I don't see a lot of ownership coming his way because of the receivers he's sandwiched between and because he's just been somewhat mediocre for like the past month of the season. Started off great, but he's just a guy that a lot of people aren't remembering. And Jameis Winston loves Mike Evans. He's going to start targeting him. Like you see here, 11. That's going to be the consistency out of Mike Evans that you get. So I like Mike Evans this week a lot. Not much more that I want to talk about in this game running back wise besides Joe Mixon being a smash play. Again, he's very similar to James Conner this week. That's what the whole industry is talking about. They're very close in price. They're both they're both home favorites in this position. And Joe Mixon, his team's coming off a bad game. He still got 13 carries, still averaged about 4 yards a carry in a game where his team was getting blown out the whole time. So if they're going to be giving him on average 25 touches a game, somebody I definitely want to play. Him and Connor are the two guys that I'm really going for this week in a lot of cash game lineups. I could put that out there. That's fine. Tight end O.J. Howard and C.J. I think I go more towards O.J. Howard. I'll pay up for him. O.J. Howard is a very talented player. Yes, Cameron Brate's out there. We didn't really touch on him. But I just want to go O.J. Howard. I think he gets great release. He's one of the most athletic tight ends in the league, if not probably top 3 athletic tight ends in the league, right? Very similar to Ricky Seals-Jones on the Cardinals, just the way that they're built, the way that they can, their metrics, their measurables. I like him a lot. So we're halfway through here. Let's go to the Jets and Bears game. Not much that I want to talk about in this game. Bilal Powell just went out for the year on a gruesome injury. If you want to come back to the Jermaine Kearse fountain of wealth when he got us a goose egg last week, I don't think it's a terrible idea. Probably not something I'm doing. The Bears are very susceptible in their pass defense. But this week, not much I'm doing here. Mitch Trubisky obviously has a great floor with his rushing upside, ability to get in the end zone and just get you extra yards on the ground to cancel out those turnovers. But he's been one of the least effective quarterbacks PFF has graded. So that shows me that there's a regression coming in this area right here. His team's throwing the ball a lot, but it seems like there's going to be a regression, as in that he's getting a lot of lucky breaks, basically, tips going his way, just defenses playing misaligned defenses, things like that. Tariq Cohen taking long passes to the house, Taylor Gabriel taking long passes to the house. So I see this regressing a little bit, but I think his rushing side still gives him a ceiling. Always a tournament play. He's becoming more of a cash play. Darnold, I don't want to touch. Running back position, I think Howard's going to have one breakout game this year. I don't know when it's going to be. Tariq Cohen is somebody, obviously, that I always want to play in tournaments, but he's becoming more of a cash guy. I mean, they're giving him a lot more snaps. He's taking over the majority of the snaps, and he's being used in the passing game. His targets have gone up the last 3 weeks. This is incredible as a running back. We're seeing Alvin Kamara type receiving numbers for him, but he's never going to run the ball, and that just limits his upside. He's more of just basically a wide receiver. You can put him in the flex, and he can outdo a lot of wide receivers for you there. I know Cannon's a hot topic now. Long term, I'm really not on him. I mean, obviously, you see here he did well. They were down. I think they're going to be down again. So I do see his upside there, taking in the ball power roll. At 3,400, I think he's a great play to kind of put in there if you believe in that in tournaments that he could actually do it. Crowell, don't like against the Bears defense, the Bears front. Sure, he can fall into the end zone, but I don't want to rely on that. Tight end, Strayburn's been great, but I think he's going to regress. Herndon's definitely a sneaky play. Darnold looked his way last week a lot. He got in the end zone, should have gotten in the end zone twice, but he dropped the ball. Definitely a sneaky play there, got in the end zone each of the past 2 weeks. But there's not much that I love in this game. Bears defense is probably the biggest contrarian play that I would go here. Basically because they're priced up. People are going to come off of that price. Why would you pay $4K for a defense, right? The Bears at home, a lot of pressure. Sam Darnold been struggling throwing interceptions. That's got pick six written all over it. That's got 6-7 sacks written all over it. It's got a 20-point week out of a defense written all over it. I'd pay up $500 to $700 for a defense. Maybe even $1,000 for a defense that's going to get me in the 20s if I know that they would get me in the 20s, compared to taking a flyer on another defense who can maybe get you 5 points. So that's usually where you see the Millie Maker lineups coming down to, how good their defense did. If they had the defense that went off, you're basically not going to win a tournament. A big tournament, at least. Let's move on to the final 4 games of the slate. Carolina at Baltimore. I think this is going to be a very good real-life game. As for a fantasy perspective, I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. I do believe, though, that you're going to see a lot of people come off of Cam Newton in this spot. But Cam Newton's the only reason that this team has 4 wins. He's just been incredible on the ground, continuing to run for like an average of 35, 40 yards a game. And as you can see, that's still going on here. His pass rating has been up there. He's, like I said, the reason that they have 4 wins. He carried the team in the last game, got 21 points in the fourth quarter to come back on a win that really nobody even saw them coming back on. They weren't doing anything all game until Cam went for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Got you that 25-point floor that he's been getting you for the majority of the season. So I like Cam as a contrarian in this part with some of his wide receivers like Funchess. CJ McCaffrey, he's just been bogged down right now. He's not doing anything in the rushing game. They're not giving him the opportunities in the rushing game because they've been behind in these past few games with Washington and Philadelphia. His floor in receiving is solid, but you got somebody like Cohen who's a lot cheaper. You got somebody like I just showed you, Cannon, who's a lot cheaper. These are guys that you can plug in who are getting similar floors. Sure, Cannon's a little bit more of a risk. He's only played 1 week. But if McCaffrey's only going to get you 6-7 catches and 50-60 yards, he's not somebody that I want to start. So I got to see more running production out of him like we saw in the first few weeks. But for right now, I'm definitely staying off of McCaffrey. Don't want any of the Baltimore running backs in either format. John Brown's obviously always a tournament play, not so much cash, but he's getting just a ton of targets out there. He had the John Brown week last week that a lot of people were calling for. Won some tournaments there. Michael Crabtree's a guy that I like just because he's so efficient around the red zone and continues to see targets. Willie Snead's not somebody I ever want to play. I get that he's consistent, he's good for cash, but he's consistent in the fact that he's consistently getting you 10 to 13 points. Sure, that might be good for cash, but these days when there's a lot of points scored, if he's your safe play and he gets you 10 points, I don't know how safe that is when you need to be scoring 150 to be cashing these days. So I like Crabtree better. Funchess, sure. If you're going to be doing the Cam stack, I think you stack Cam with somebody like Funchess, and you're going to have to play McCaffrey. If you stack Cam, you're going to have to play McCaffrey. Their correlation for big games is just incredible. When Cam goes off, McCaffrey goes off. When McCaffrey goes off, Cam goes off, and that's because they check the ball down a lot. Tight ends in this one, Greg Olsen. I mean, there's so many tight ends in Baltimore, we can't even talk about them all. The poor rookie, he's probably the most talented one, but he's just not getting as much as much run. Where is he here? Hayden Hurst, yes, he's all the way at the bottom. He's not getting as much run because they have like 4 other proven guys out there. The next guy I'll just talk about, yeah, Greg Olsen quick. He's very safe, got in the end zone. Safe in terms that he's going to get targets. Cam Newton likes to look his way. That's it about this game. Like I said, the main thing about this game is just Cam Newton being a contrarian stack play. I don't want to touch Joe Flacco. His ceiling is so low and his floor is so low as well. So really, Cam Newton stacking with McCaffrey and maybe Funchess or one of the other receivers on the Panthers is a contrarian stack for sure. Maybe Cam, Greg Olsen, and McCaffrey as well. But in a low-scoring game, you can't expect much. You could go naked Cam here because he can get you that 25-point floor and then target your other skilled position somewhere else. I like that strategy as well. I see that being something that can win you tournaments. 3 games left. This is the second game that I'm going to sneakily stack. So sneakily stacking that Seattle game. We're going to sneakily stack Seattle against Detroit. I think there's going to be a lot of points there, 50 points. This next game, Indianapolis and Baltimore, I think it's like a 50.5 over-under. Let me check this one out here. It's 49.5, so just like Seattle, right? So around 50 again. I think there's going to be points to be had in this one. I love stacking Andrew Luck with, if Doyle's going to be out, I think he practiced Wednesday, yeah. So I'm not going to go Ebron, but I love stacking Andrew Luck with T.Y. against a bad Oakland defense, something like that. And then bringing it back with somebody on the other side. Jared Cook, Jordy Nelson. But the one that I like a lot, stacking Derek Carr. This is a stack that I think I might be the only person besides maybe some of you that might play this, will play. Martavis Bryant. And Jalen Richard. Cheap. So here's 2 things. It's a cheap stack, right? It's a cheap stack in a game where I think Oakland is underdogs at home. Let's check this spread out here. I'm using BetDSI. It's an app. It's pretty good. You can check all the things out, scores and things like that, or lines. Yeah, so Indianapolis is a 3-point favorite, so that means that Richard's probably going to be on the play for a lot more passing downs on the field. I know Deion Washington is coming back, or is his name Deion Washington? DeAndre Washington, my bad. Yeah, so DeAndre Washington, I believe, is coming back. I know Doug Martin's out there, and that's probably going to be the guy who just takes over majority of the work out there. But he's not very effective, and I think they might realize that quick. Richard's just a cannon in the passing game. Look at this, 12, 11, and 12 points just off of passing game yards. If you can get some carries, if you can get in the end zone, he's a guy at 4,200 that I like in a sneaky tournament stack play, right? Martavis Bryant, the same thing. Amari Cooper's now gone. He's going to get more playing time, more run. If you want to go with somebody like Jordy instead because you feel more confident around Jordy for an extra $1,000, I'm fine with that. He's a better red zone target. He's a better conversion on his targets guy. But Martavis Bryant just needs one big 50-yard touchdown. He's getting value at 3,700 for you. And then what you do here, if you want to stack this game, you come back with somebody like T.Y. Yes, he's not in the dome, but he's still valuable. You put in the Steelers defense. Like I said, I'm going Steelers defense all day at that price and the value that they have. I think they should be somewhere closer to like 2,800. And now you have 7K to spend at 5 positions. And the crazy thing here is if you just went tight end, a decent play, even if you went a very decent play at tight end here, say you went Jimmy Graham. Now you have 7,800 to spend at all your positions. You can load this lineup up. You want Gurley, you can get Gurley. And then it's just whatever you want from there. It's your opinion. If you want Mike Wallace, and then you can go 6K. Golden Tate, Cooper Kupp, John Brown, Cohen, whatever you want, right? You can go more value if you don't want to play Gurley, like a lot of people don't want to play this week, and you can get a couple of better running backs in there. You can get him, and you can probably get Mixon in there if you come off of him. Yeah, you see what I'm doing here. So Joe Mixon, then you have 8,800 to spend on wide receiver. That's absolutely incredible. You can get any wide receiver you want. Antonio Brown, I'm not totally against a lineup like this. I'm going to be stacking Derek Carr because he still does have it. He's throwing a ton. And all it takes is a high-scoring game, which this one is slated to be at home in a game where he's facing a lot of adversity. Maybe he comes out here, throws 3 touchdowns and 300 yards for us. And if he's doing that, you can bet your bottom dollar that Martavis Bryant at least is having 50 yards in there, maybe a touchdown or 2. And Jalen Richard is probably having a couple of receptions. So that's the main thing I just want to show you about that game. Monitor Jack Doyle if you want to play. If you want to play Ebron again, just monitor Jack Doyle. And that's really it from that game. A defense in this one, I do like the Colts defense. They're priced up though. But again, if you want to be contrarian in tournaments, go up and pay for them. If you want to be safer in cash, go up and pay for them. Cash game perspective from this game, Andrew Luck I like for cash. A good amount actually. Definitely a contrarian play for tournaments, but he's not bad if you want to come down and save a little bit of money in cash. But again, at his price range, I think I just go up $100 in cash to Aaron Rodgers. And this is the thing. In cash games, it doesn't matter if you're putting it in every other person, or majority of people, 70% of people are playing Aaron Rodgers. Just play him and then just hope the rest of your lineup's good, because you're going to beat those 30% of people who don't have Aaron Rodgers in their lineup that week and are going to save off majority of the time. Cash, you don't have to worry about ownership as much. Cash games are just like your head-to-heads, your double-ups, your 50-50s. For me, I just play 50-50s and double-ups, or 50-50s and head-to-heads in cash, so you just have to beat 50% of the field. Whether it's head-to-heads, you're just beating 1 out of 2 people, or 50-50s, you're just beating half the field. So just play the safe guys, basically, or the guys with upside, even if everybody else is chalking them and putting them in. This last game, not much I'm going to say about it. Maybe you go back to the C.J. Beathard in tournaments because you think he has a game here, but on the road against Arizona, good decent pass rush. Don't want to touch it. I like their defense a lot, but they're so expensive this week at $3,200. That's absurd with how many cheap defenses there are. Running back David Johnson. If you believe that Byron Leftwich is going to get David Johnson and this Cardinals offense back on, and you want to be ahead of the game, then go ahead and play David Johnson in cash and tournaments. He's very cheap at $6,700. He's a guy who has 9,000K upside, 10,000K upside. We've seen that in the past. And he's a guy who's been pretty safe the past couple of weeks. He's finally getting some more work in the passing game. He's going to get the goal line work. He's the only running back out there. And you have to believe that Byron Leftwich is going to be focusing his offense around David Johnson this week. That's what everybody in the media has been saying. Byron Leftwich has to be seeing that. Get him in the passing game. Get him in the slot. I like David Johnson actually a lot. He's a huge value play. People might stay off of him, see what happens this week. I say be early on it. And if you're early on it, you're going to be rewarded in tournaments and cash. And if you're not, then you just burnt a $10 Millie Maker ticket, so who really cares? Outside of that, though, I think Larry Fitz and Kirk are going to have some upside here if Leftwich. Basically, they had an awful offensive coordinator, whoever it was, McCoy, I don't remember who it was. But whoever it is, it's going to be awful. Was awful. Whoever's a replacement, Leftwich, is going to have to do better. I mean, there's not much worse you can do. So I do like Kirk and Fitzgerald here. Good win, tournament only. Not really focusing too much on him this week, especially with Patrick Peterson out there. Probably going to lock him down a good amount. Outside of that, I mean, if you want to go value plays, I like Trent Taylor always. He's finally going to be healthy this week. He's going to go more towards this 5 to 8K range. Probably stuck between 4 to 7 targets is probably his average. But he's just a safe cash play if that's where you want to go. Other than that, though, not really I'm going to touch in this game. I love Seals Jones. If you watched my last week's Thursday's lineup, I had him in some captain spots. He got hurt a little bit, and they were just an absolute train wreck. I think he's very athletic. I think this is a guy, along with David Johnson, that can be featured in this new Cardinals offense. And at 3K, I think he's worth a punt if that's what you want to do here. As long as he is healthy, he practiced in full, it seems like he's going to be healthy. 3K, that's actually a really good price for a guy this athletic with a new offensive coordinator who's probably going to try and feature their most athletic players like their previous one did not. So maybe we get some value here. That's actually very interesting. I'm just like seeing that for the first time. I like him a lot there. But that's it, really. The last game, highest point total game of the week. A game that in the first look lineup that I said I wanted Aaron Rodgers at 6,400 on the road as an underdog against the Rams. I still love that spot for him. Obviously, long term, you don't want huge favorite quarterbacks, huge underdog quarterbacks, basically because that means their team's not supposed to score a lot of points if they're the underdog. If they're the favorite, they're probably going to run the ball a little bit more later in the game. But that never factors in the fact that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback that you're playing as the underdog spot, that his team needs a win here, that he's never been an underdog of this much in his career. Maybe that gives him and the Packers a little bit of an edge. I think that it does. He's a guy who's very competitive, and something like that would spark him. And he's getting his receivers back. He's going to get Cobb back. He's going to get Allison back. I'm guessing they both practice that Thursday. He expects Allison to play in Sunday's game. So there you go. He expects him to play. And Cobb here said Thursday that he's on course to play in Sunday's game. So both of them are very likely. They seem more likely to play this week. I love Cobb at his price point at $4,900 in the slot, back in the slot. Feel bad for MVS. I think he should still be getting playing time, but I don't think he's going to take a lot of snaps away from Cobb if Cobb is fully healthy. But going back to that, I think Aaron Rodgers stacks are going to be the highest owned stacks of the week. I think you're going to see a lot of Aaron Rodgers with somebody like Jimmy Graham. And then, I don't know if people will pay up for Adams. I think they will, just based on his, you're going to get a lot of casual players seeing this. They're going to be seeing the 38, 32 games, and they're going to say, yep, we're building our lineups around that. And then people are going to come back with this right here. I don't know what Kupp's doing. Let's look at Cooper Kupp. He's doubtful to play in this one, so Woods is going to be the chalk again. And I like Woods in cash. I'm going to play him again in cash, and probably my cash game lineup. I'll come out with that on Monday and recap it for you guys, maybe Sunday night, to let you know how I'm doing and show you the plays that I made. And right now I'm leaning a lot towards Connor, Mixon, and Robert Woods. So that's kind of building it around that, and Aaron Rodgers. And like I said, I like Cobb. So that's just somewhere I'm looking, but we'll see how the week turns out. Woods, in a game where they were blown out, still manages to get almost 80 yards, 5 catches. Didn't get in the end zone like we would have hoped, but he's due for a touchdown in 3 weeks now. You can't predict touchdowns, but in this offense, you know they're going to score points, and you know that not every single touchdown is going to go to Todd Gurley, even though it has been. There's going to be some kind of regression there in the passing game. Woods in this area I love. And like I said, I didn't touch on Todd Gurley. At his price at $9,800, tournament play, obviously, if you don't have him in a tournament and he goes off, you're not winning the tournament. If you don't have him in cash and he goes off, you're fine, because I don't think a lot of people are going to play him in cash this week. So cash game lineups, I'm not coming towards him because I think there's a lot better home running backs that are favored, i.e. James Conner, i.e. Kareem Hunt, i.e. Joe Mixon. A lot of them, right? There's a good amount of them. So Todd Gurley, as always, he's probably going to get 30 points this week. But the Packers are focusing on him like all defenses do. People are trying to prevent him now, make Goff throw the ball, see if Goff is actually a great quarterback or if it's just the system, and Todd Gurley helping him out. I think he's a little bit of both. So I'm going to stay off of Gurley this week. But I think this is going to be one of the most popular builds of the week, right? And it is an expensive build because you're paying up at wide receiver and you're kind of paying up at tight end, but there's running backs on here, even down here in this range, where there's a lot of value. Marlon Mack, Kerryon Johnson, if Theo Riddick doesn't play. This seems like a very smart way to go. And then if you want to go whole Packers stack, get the old Jordy Nelson in there. And then you can fit in somebody like Emmanuel Sanders if you're going tournament-wise. And that's a lineup that I see a lot of people playing. I think this could be a very successful lineup because that's such a high total game. The problem is a lot of people are going to play Rodgers. A lot of people are going to play Graham. A lot of people are going to play Woods. Decent amount of people are probably going to play Adams. Even if all those guys hit, then you better hope that your punt plays go off. If you have Kerryon Johnson in here and it's Nick Chubb who goes off, you're not winning the tournament. But from cash, I love Aaron Rodgers. Probably he's going to be my cash guy at $6,400. In a week and in a year where the quarterbacks have just been tightened up at price. The next guy that I would probably play at cash or consider at cash is somebody like Baker Mayfield at $5,700. I'd rather pay the extra, like $800 to get Aaron Rodgers in this situation. Or $700 to get Aaron Rodgers in this situation all the time because it's just the difference of going down at defense then. So, like I said, I think that's going to be the most popular stack of the week. It's the highest point total. It's going to be a very fun game. The Packers are huge underdogs. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. Rams secondary hasn't been tested as much. They're terrible in the middle of the field at the tight end position. Packers have a pretty good tight end. They haven't played somebody like Aaron Rodgers yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how they compete against somebody like Aaron Rodgers and then Patty Mahomes in a couple of weeks. Jared Goff, if you want to be contrarian and you want to stack it the opposite way, he's a little bit of a saver. Tournaments-wise, you can go Jared Goff, you can go Robert Woods, you can go Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, one of these weeks, is going to go off, right? He hasn't gone off yet for us. I played him a couple of times. That's Woods. Cooks, he just hasn't gone off yet. He's the guy who can get you a 40-point week. And he just hasn't done that yet. He hasn't been catching many bombs. So I think that's going to happen. The Packers are one of the teams that give up the most explosive plays of the year. They're in top 3 in explosive plays given up, but they're also in the top 5. They're number 5 at pressures, adjusted pressure percentage, which is very interesting because Clay Matthews is washed up. Nick Perry's hasn't been having a Nick Perry year, but they're still getting pressure because of guys like Mike Daniels, Kenny Clark up front, improving every single year. Kenny Clark, when they had Mo Wilk, he was doing very well for them. And they're blitzing a lot from the outside from the safety position, which is actually very good. You have Jair Alexander's been blitzing a lot from that position, and Josh Jackson's been blitzing a lot from that position. All right, so I think that's all we have right here. Like I said, tight end, I like Jimmy Graham a lot this week. I think a lot of other people are going to like him at that price, but keep in mind, with Geronimo Allison and Randall Cobb coming back, he's had his 2 best weeks with them out. With them there, he didn't really do much, right? 6 for 8 for 95 yards. That's a game that went into overtime, so there was a couple extra possessions there. Hasn't been great overall with those guys in the lineup, so I think maybe fading him is the way to go this week, and you go somebody like Cobb, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae, come back with Cooks is a contrarian way to play that stack. Everybody's going to have Woods, and rightfully so because he's probably going to have the better game, but Cooks is just as able to have that game on one pass. So I kind of like going Cooks, coming back with Cobb, Rodgers, if you want to be contrarian and still have a big piece of that game. Defense in this one, I think the Packers are a sneaky defense at 2K. They're so low, but the implied point total, you just can't play them. I like them because they're causing pressure, and I think Goff is susceptible to interceptions. They've had a decent year so far, and they're going to have all of their defenders back for the first time all year since week 1. They're going to have all 5 of their cornerbacks, Rashad Breeland, Jair Alexander is coming back, Tramon Williams is going to be healthy. So I do like this position for their defense in terms of getting pressure and forcing sacks, maybe an interception or 2. But the fact that they're probably going to give up 30 points is just not bearable in defense, DK. So that's a quick rundown of the slate. Just kind of didn't really prep anything beforehand. This is just what I've been reading this week, just kind of doing on my own, and then just wanted to go through it and let you know what I think about every single game. Maybe I missed something. My sneaky stacks are Indianapolis and Oakland game, 49.5 total. Seattle, Detroit, 50 on some sites, 49.5 on some others. I think those are sneaky positions. I think Cleveland and Pittsburgh, some people are going to stack, especially taking advantage of Ben Roethlisberger, James Conner, and then Juju/AB, whichever way you go with that. But I think this is going to be a lot lower than people think. In Pittsburgh, it's going to be cold there. On the road for Baker Mayfield, who has a terrible offensive line. Pittsburgh has a good defensive line, and the Browns have a good secondary. So I don't see why there should be a lot of points in this one, but you never know. I don't know why the over-under is where it's at. I know Big Ben at home, that has to be taken into account. But I just see this one being a lot low scoring than other people. Other than that, like I said, I like OBJ, I like Mike Evans as guys who are going to be guys who can get you 30 to 40 points in a week, and they're not going to be heavily owned, probably up 5%, under 5% for each of them, especially OBJ, because he has a little bit of a worse matchup where people still think that Josh Norman is one of the best cornerbacks in the league, where he is definitely good, but he's not one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league anymore. So yeah, that's this. This is just a game-by-game breakdown. The first time I'm doing it, this is going to be a longer video, probably pushing 50 minutes to an hour. I'll put in the game notes if you have just clicked to this part, who I'm starting or where each game is with time codes. But I appreciate you guys watching this. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Get in the comments, let me know what you think about this. I'll be back with my recap for the week and my first look lineup at week 9. Good luck this weekend, everybody. My name's Sal. Peace.